The learnings of the Nishmas Etta Ahuva Basaka Masech Nedarim Perek Beis Mishna Dalad. Stam Nedarim lahachmer Pirushin lahakel. Stam Nedarim will go lechumra unless he explains his kavana was that it should be mutter, and then we'll go lekula. The Mishnah gives 4 examples. Ketzad. He says that this thing should be aser to me like salted meat or like yayin esach. So if he explains shel shamayim nada that he's referring to basar maliach, the carbon, or kiyayin esach on the mizbeach, so then it's going to be aser. But im shel avodah zara nadar. But if he explains that he's referring to avodah zara, and then the halacha is that it's not a davar hanadar, it's a davar ha'aser, and we said earlier in Mishnah Aleph that the neder is not going to be chal, then it's going to be mutter, so that's pirushan lahakel. He explains what he's referring to, avodah zara, then it's mutter. Ve'im stam, but if he doesn't explain, it's stam nedarim lahachmer, and it's aser. The second example is the same thing, harei alai kecherim, so im kecherim shel shamayim aser. If he says he's referring to cherim of hegdish, so then that's aser. But he says kecherim shel kohen, which is chulin, the ned is not chal, and it's mutter. It's pirushan lahakel. V'im stam, but if he doesn't explain, it's going to be aser. The third example is harei alai kemaiser. So im kemaiser behemer another aser. If he says he's referring to maiser behemer, which is hegdish, then the ned is chal, it's aser. It's toughest bedavar another. But im shal geirin mutter. But if he says referring to maiser rishon, which is mutter lazarim, then ned is not chal, so that's pirushan lahakel, and it's mutter. But b'im stam, if he doesn't explain, it's going to be aser. The fourth and final example is harei alai kitruma. So im kitrumas halishka nodar aser. If he says he's referring to the money that we use to buy carbonas, it's going to be aser. That's tough as bedavar another. But im shel geirin, if he says he's referring to the regular truma, so that's tough as bedavar aser. The neder is nachal, and it's going to be mutter. That's pirushan lahakel. Im stam, if he doesn't explain, it's stam nedarim lahachmer, and it's aser. Divir Ramei Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says that by truma and cherim, it depends on where you are. Stam truma be Yehuda aser because they're referring to hektish. Bigolo mutares. She'ein anshe golem makir in the trumas halishka, they're not referring to the trumas halishka, rather, which would be money going to hektish. Rather, they're referring to truma of a kohen, which is mutter. Stam charamim, by charamim is the opposite. Be Yehuda mutarim, in Yehuda they're mutter, because over there they're referring to chermei kohenim only. But begadol asurun she'ein anshe golem makir in the chermei kohenim, so they're not referring to the kohen, they're referring to a cherim of hektish, which is going to be aser. So in the end of the Mishnah, the Gemara points out that it's Trei Tanoya Libidar Yehuda, because by Stam Truma Yehuda Asura, it says it's going to be Asa without a reason. And then when it gets to Stam Charamim, it says the Stam is going to be Mutter, and you need a reason in order for it to become Aser. So there's one Tana in our Mishnah, at the end of the Mishnah, that holds that Stam Nedarim is the Kula. And the Ran points out that is an earlier Shaka V'Tari in the Gemara that we asked from a Mishnah which says not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Stam Nedarim Lahachmer. It starts off that there's a Mishnah that says Stam Neziris L'Kula. And we find in the Gemara 3 different Mahalchim of how it's a Machlekes Tanam. The Ran says we could have brought from the end of our Mishnah that you see it, there's a Manda Omer that we go L'Kula. Mishnah Hey, Nodar B'Cherem. So our Mishnah is going to have another 4 example where it's pirushan lahakel. He says he's not referring to cherim of hegdish. There was a trap that was called a cherim, and that's what he's referring to. It's mutter. The carbon. He says carbon, and he says he's only referring to a carbon that they brought as a present to the king. So that's not hegdish, that's mutter. Harei atzmi carbon he says I'm not referring to atzmi, to myself, I'm referring to an etzem that I have, a bone that I have in my house. So then it's mutter. Well, the 4th example is koinem ishti nenes li. My wife is going to have, it'd be also to have enough from me. Va'amar lo nadarti elo be ishti harishoni shigarashi. He says he's referring to a wife that he had already divorced. So we say pirushan lahakal, and you don't even need she'ila. The Mishnah says akulan ein nishan lahem. But then the Mishnah says ve'im nishalu. If you did do she'ila, so the Gemara explains that this means that it was an ama aretz that went ahead and did she'ila eventually, and before that he was over on the neder. So then on such a person we're going to be machmer in 2 ways. Number 1, ein shinaiseh, we punish him, which the Gemara explains that the days that he wasn't listening to the neder, keneged those, he has to be noig days and listen to the neder, even though be'etzem the neder wouldn't have been chal, because it's pirushan lahakel. And machmir naleya means that we're machmir on him not to be Poiseach the regular way with Charata. Rather, we need to find a Pesach Mamish. Divir Amer, that's our Meir said. He argues on both things. Number one, we're not Ein Shinoisa. He doesn't have to be Noyeg Yimei Iser Kimei Heter. And number two is Pesach Mimakom Achar will be open up a Pesach with Charata alone, but not with saying that you don't need Sheil at all. Lamaisa, we're going to say that you do need a Pesach, but the Pesach is based on Charata. We're going to bring up a reason for him that will make him say that if I wouldn't know about this, I wouldn't have made the neder. We teach him that he shouldn't be noig kalas reish in Nedarim. The Gemara over here brings a brisa that says a person shouldn't be ragel in Nedarim. A person is going to wind up being over in it. So in general, it's not good to make Nedarim.